Hey folks, this is going to be the first episode of Autism Talks. Now, why am I doing this? Autism is horribly underappreciated and underrecognized. I'm going to give you a high overview of what it's like to be autistic, and then I'm going to start making some videos on individual things that happen with autists. I haven't seen anything like what I'm trying to do here, and I think I know why. If you go back in history, real quick history lesson. Carl Jung, like Freud, Jung, all that. Okay, so Sigmund Freud, he would be like Jordan Peterson, seriously. Like where he is on the universal spectrum, okay, that would be Jordan Peterson. I would be Carl Jung. Carl Jung was on the spectrum, make no mistake. It's rare to find somebody on the spectrum, like somebody that is functionally autistic, meaning you're functional, you can still speak, be able to convey things, to understand psychology, to have a love for psychology like I have. It's very rare. And I view it as my responsibility to pass on what knowledge I can to make the lives of my fellow autists better. Because we have hard lives. I'll talk more about that, but this is just a high-level overview. Let's get into it. I'm going to be talking about autism. And this is literally my 8th take trying to do this one. Because talking about what autism is and what it's like being autistic is a challenge, because I tend to break things down structurally, all right? Now, I'm not going to keep using big words, but I will keep using big words. You know, they're going to be interlaced here and there, like boom, there's a paragraph. One word, one word, one word. That's kind of how it's going to be. And I'm going to be taking a little bit of the filter off. Now, what do I mean by filter? Most functional autists wear a filter. That means we wear a personality that we think you guys are going to like. And we piece patterns together. We're really good at puzzles. And we think like an AI. So an AI says, oh, they did this. Oh, they did this. Oh, they did this. So likely they're going to do this again in this situation. And then it adapts to it. It's basically it's correlating a bunch of data into one sequence of events based on a scenario, right? So we think like that. We listen to all of you. We say, hey, in this situation, they usually say that, or they usually think that, or they usually do that. And we piece that together to where we adopt different personalities. Because you'll hear a little bit of twang in my voice and whatnot. Like that whatnot, that's not how I think. That's how I've adapted to make you guys relate to me a little bit better. And that's what the filter is. We're basically wearing a mask, pretending to be all of you. When we talk, we have a strong association with our hippocampus. What does that mean? That means your computer has a hard drive, and that hard drive stores all of these different programs. When your CPU needs to process something, it has to go through this thing called a RAM bus to the RAM, and then you've got sorting mechanisms that say, hey, I need to go to this part of the hard drive to pull this memory. Well, think of us as having a processor that can't slow down. It has to be running full speed all the time. Otherwise, if we try to focus on just one thing, just one core, we burn out. Because you're putting all that electricity into one little itty bitty core on a 16-core processor. And it's going to eventually cause it to burn out. And we have this huge, I'll call it a server, because all of our memories, we have better access to our memories than you guys do, but our sorting mechanism isn't the greatest. That's something that you guys have in spades. I mean, it's crazy how well you guys can sort through your memories and through all of your different experiences and then be able to relate them in real time in a conversation. That's an amazing trait. You guys have just such, I'll say, psych powers, because you guys are able to communicate with one another fluidly and to understand inferences, figures of speech. My kind, we have a huge association with our hippocampus, our hard drives. And sometimes it's kind of like that boom, because we'll get memory, memory, memory. Now, they'll all come from the same gun, meaning, okay, they've got something that relates them. Something. When we try to access those memories, we'll see more than one. Because to be autistic means everything that I've ever said, I visualize everything. Whether it's seeing the word, whether it's seeing the memory that inspired the words, or whether it's seeing your reactions. I'm horrible with figures of speech. Oh my gosh, do you know how many years it took me to figure out what the glass is half full means? That took me years. I remember being 8 years old when my grandmother said it to me, right? I just brushed it off as a figure of speech because she said, well, the glass is half full. Where's the glass? I literally said that and did that. And then when I was 12, a buddy of mine named Chris at Spanaway Junior High, I'm glad he took me under his wing because I wouldn't be able to speak to you the way that I'm able to speak to you if it wasn't for him. Let me tell you something. He basically taught me what I plan on teaching in this series. I've got a couple different autists that I'm coaching right now because they haven't made it quite as far as I have societally, meaning they haven't fully developed their sense of empathy. And that's something that is commonly associated with people on the spectrum is we are much, much slower to develop our sense of empathy. Meaning we will love animals. If we adopt an animal or if we adopt somebody as family, we do love them. But the way that we express ourselves to them or the way that we try to understand them can only go off of our own. Meaning we can analyze and we can say, oh, this, that, and the other. But when we try to figure out the why, like for example, we see somebody cry because we said something to them, right? Sometimes, if we are manipulative like I used to be, I'm not proud of it, but we think that they are doing what we do, which is we would cry to manipulate. We don't think that what we said actually hurt them. And keep in mind, this is just a crash course. This is a crash course on autism. I'm going to narrow down to specific subjects left and right. It's what I'm doing with every one of my shows. I give you a crash course, and then everything after that, pull up your pants. That reference is hold on to your butt, which came from a movie. And so, I'm tying back to different memories right now. And to dive into those memories, like what you just saw, hold on to your butt, or pull up your pants, that is what's called rabbit holing. We do that a lot. Rabbit holing is where we have these stray thoughts, but we notice them. You guys have stray thoughts too, but you guys don't chase them down so much. You're able to dismiss them. We have to look. It's kind of like when a couple minutes ago, I had something land on my hand, and I noticed it. Then I had to click back in. We notice everything. Even in our memories, we will end up rabbit holing. Well, I mean, that's what rabbit holing is. It's memories. It's diving down your memories and associating these different experiences, sensations, feelings, smells, sights, movies. We dive down these different, how to say this? This is why this is take 8. So you understand what rabbit holing is. Basically, you see a memory, you're falling down the hole, and you're like, oh my gosh, that thing's floating, that thing's floating, that thing's floating. Grab it. That's what it is. You know, Alice in Wonderland type stuff. But we notice everything. We have to train ourselves to not notice things. And for those of you functionally autistic watching this, I'm going to teach you how to do it. I'm going to teach you some tricks. Now, if you're a teenager and you're watching this and, trying to reach out, there's nothing wrong with it. There's really nothing wrong with it. And there's nothing wrong with you. You're just different. And I'm going to teach you how to use that gift that you've been given. We aren't the most social people in the world, but this is for you too. This isn't just for normal adults. We have unique gifts. We are very, very good at puzzles. We're really good at puzzles. My love, my true passion is psychology. But every autist has a passion. And every autist has a different gift. There was one young man that he was flown in a helicopter around, I believe it was LA. And then he drew it in a panoramic landscape flattened out. And he did such an amazing job. He caught every detail. Autists, the more gifted we are, the more function we lose. That's the sliding curve. I'm grateful for not being further on the spectrum than I am. I love being on the spectrum. Don't get me wrong. I love being autistic. I really do. There is no shame in being autistic. Other people don't understand you, but other people are racist and bigots and misogynist and pickinist. All of that derives from Schadenfreude, which I'll explain in Psych Talk. And any psych student that just heard me say that is like, oh, like it light bulb. We see things differently and we piece big puzzles together. But the way that we piece things together is we have to figure out why. My micro savant And I say micro savant because I've seen actual savants, and I'm nowhere near that capability. But my micro savant is pathological correlation. What does that mean? Pathology means you're tracing something back to its origin. Then correlation means you're matching different things together. They may seem associated or they may not seem associated. I've been doing that since I was a kid. That's why I'm so dang good at video games. Those things are based on rules. And that leads me to my next point. Crash course, okay? Crash course. This is just a crash course video into autism. We live by rules. It's why we love video games. It's why my kind will get addicted to video games, all right? By living by rules, that makes us gullible. It does. And our rules are either taught to us by you, they're taught to us by books, they're taught to us in school, or they're taught to us by life. I've never once met an autist that had an easy life. Not one. Not a single one. I've known hundreds personally, and I've met thousands. Because I love psychology, I'm always searching. And I've learned rules from movies too. I mentioned gullible, and I mentioned rules. By being gullible and loving rules, that's why what we watch is kind of important. Meaning what we watch on TV, what we watch in movies, because we are learning from that. And we're more impressionable than most children. But the catch is, you've never seen an autist do a mass shooting, have you? We're peaceful people. We don't like conflict. We want to figure things out, and we will stand our ground if we think we're right. But we're not going to fight you over it. In fact, it may get to the point where we know we're right, we know you're wrong. The evidence is clearly laid out, and boom, we develop a rule that says to ignore you. Now, you see how I just circled that back? I kind of went around and then I circled back to the rule. We talk in circles, and I'll get into that in a second too. I'm going to cover a lot of things. This is high-level overview. Let's stick to rules for a second. Rules are learned and developed. For example, I have a rule right now that I will never speak to my father again. I never want to, because he has been a damaging force in my life. Damaging. And you see, right now when I said that, because I mentioned my father, I just had to relive a bunch of memories I didn't want to relive. That's how sharp our memory is in the sense of having to relive things. Like, I'm literally walking around with PTSD all day, every day. Most of my kind are. But we're really good at handling that, and we can suppress it unless it's, an ongoing thing. And the reason we develop rules is to protect us from that, to help us understand, okay, this is how it's going to be in that scenario, or with this person, or with this environment. Again, I've never met an autist with an easy life. Not one. See, I can't say this. Let's just say, imagine the worst case scenario with autism, or I'm sorry, worst case scenario with depression. Like the worst case scenario. You know exactly what I'm hinting at. But because this show is going to somewhat speak to children, I don't want to mention it out loud. I also have never known a functional autist that didn't have that impulse. In fact, I'm battling it right now. I battle it every day and have for the past 3 years. I learned empathy. I learned it in my mid-20s. Like, I didn't have true empathy. I had mimicked empathy based on me looking at you guys, seeing how you reacted to different scenarios. And then the rule is, oh, you've got to show empathy in this. Best love and wishes. Oh, bless its heart. We do it too. We also want to feel connected. We want to feel loved. We want to be your friends. But we're awkward. Everybody has a word that's used to describe them. In the case of my brother, Kevin Kaesberg, Kaesberg, the word that every single person that he and I both know is a-hole. That is the word to describe him by literally everybody that I could track down. And the word to describe me by literally every friend, every family member, every ex-girlfriend is weird. I'm just weird. There's no bad words, like, oh, like a-hole, like nothing like that. My kind are docile, and we live by rules. That's why we have OCD, is, okay, we have these different rules, and we always seek balance. That's why you'll see obsessive compulsiveness, is we live by rules, we live by rituals, and we want balance in everything. That's why we get even, is if you wrong us, then we will look for ways to wrong you. And that's just our internal sense of justice. It's a rule that we have to either train out of ourselves or train into ourselves in some cases. And I've personally cost 2 people their careers, but it was very deserved because they cost me, in one case, thousands of dollars, in one case, tens of thousands. And they did so maliciously. They didn't need to. There was no incentive. They just did it to be doing it. That is a sense, I don't want to say a sense of justice, but it is our need to balance. We want to balance everything. If you want to tick off an autist, go through a hallway and tilt pictures. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like that's offensive. I would have to fix those because those would be visually offensive to me. And let me go into, you guys get the general gist of, okay, we form rules. And our rules make us gullible, meaning we want to trust people. We want to trust you. We do. And then you guys are going to lie to us, or some of you, and then we're going to learn to trust human beings less. We're going to keep our guard up. And that makes us socially awkward, more so than we already were. And that's a challenge. But it's a challenge that most of us will overcome, the vast majority. When we have people lying to us all the time, and when we have people using our gullibility, our desire to trust you, The Good Doctor. Look up The Good Doctor on YouTube, or Netflix, Netflix. That's a great show to watch. Most of you have Netflix, I'm guessing, at this point. That was the best portrayal of autism I've ever seen. Further on the spectrum than me, let's say this is the spectrum. I'm right here. He would be right here. Not too much of a difference, but his capabilities are outstanding. They pulled that off wonderfully, to the point where I don't know if that actor is autistic or not. And that's awesome. That's awesome. Let me talk about colicky. Okay, you've heard about rules, you've heard about balance. Anything out of balance offends us. It's literally, it feels like an offense, like being slapped in the face. It's rough. So let's go into colicky. Most autists, especially when you're as far on the spectrum as I am, being considered functionally autistic instead of ADHD or ADD or whatever the heck they want to throw a label on to make themselves famous. And yes, I did say that. And yes, I mean it. I don't like how my kind have been treated over the years, especially by psychologists who think they know something. It's time to correct that crap. And that's my sense of justice and balance. I don't like that other people are going through some of the things that I had to go through with medications and all of that from people who think they know something, that don't really understand. I knew what it was to be drunk until I was 18 and actually got drunk. Unless you've actually experienced it, how the heck can you think to even imagine to treat it? Colicky. The majority of autists that I've found are colicky. I mean, I haven't met one that didn't feel growing pains. We have a strong sense of our bodies. It's why we are colicky babies, is we can feel all the growing pains. By the time I hit fifth grade and a half, I started the new school then. I remember feeling my leg grow. I remember feeling my arm growing. And it hurt. But by that time, I had gotten used to it. So it hurts, but whatever. It'll pass. Most of the autists that I know have a high tolerance for pain. New types of pain, yeah. Those, like a sharp pain versus a dull pain versus an aching pain and so on and so forth. Yeah, new types of pain are new types of pain, and we feel it acutely. But like right now, you'd never guess that I have arthritis. I've broken this hand 5 times, this hand 3, and I've done a lot of things that I shouldn't have been doing with my hands, and this knee right here has some arthritis. But you'd never know because I'm used to the pain. The pain was so sharp for a while that eventually, it took years. The arthritis set in about when I was 20, 21 years old. And there were times when I would take a popsicle stick, and let's say this knuckle right here is hurting. I would tape these 2 things together with a popsicle stick and still be typing with my other 3 fingers. No matter how much you're used to pain, if the weather changes, it bites. It bites hard. But colicky babies can basically feel that they're here. And part of the reason why I'm obsessed with psychology, if my mother can be believed, is she said when I was born, they put me on her chest. I somehow lifted my head, looked into her eyes with my baby blues, and then laid my head down and fell asleep. And from that moment on, I followed her everywhere. I was looking at her, observing her, and all of that. You'll find a lot of us are like that, but in different ways. We show off what our natural affinities are at an early age if we're given enough stimuli. But being colicky babies means you can feel everything. When I was a kid, I used to tell doctors when they were cleaning out my ears, because I have small ear canals, I would tell them where they missed a spot, because I could feel where the wax was. And I have what's called Lynch syndrome. It means one day I'm going to fart and die. I have to get an annual colonoscopy, which is a fun process, let me tell you something. I could feel the harsher edges that they put that thing around. Like I could feel where they went. And I'm not the only autist that I've talked to that has had a colonoscopy and could feel it. In fact, she is one of my closest friends. She's cool. I like her and her husband. Like, they're just awesome people. And they volunteer with me at the VVA, Victory for Veterans Alliance, vva-usa.org if you want to learn more about it. Basically, we find homeless veterans' homes. I use my autism to be the principal architect of the sustainability project. Basically, we find them homes, we give them jobs, evoke rehab, and all that good stuff. And we tie everything together in a way that grows the program organically. No pun intended, if you visit the site, vva-usa.org. But we are very sensitive to our bodies. In fact, I believe that's why my kind, we're not promiscuous, but imagine the drive for being promiscuous and then putting that into a person without the extraversion to be promiscuous. You know what I mean? You get what I'm saying? Like we don't necessarily approach people and say, hey, and yo, what up? We don't exactly do that. But at the same time, we have the drive that those people do. And again, this is another one where I have never met a functional autist that didn't have that. Not a one. And again, we feel more than most people do. Like you guys didn't feel growing pains growing up. We did. So we're more in touch with our bodies, more tuned with our bodies than you guys are. That's why bullying is a horrible thing for us, because when you hit us, we feel it more. And there's no cause for it, because we just want to fit in. We just want to blend in. My teenager friends out there, I get you. I was there. We just want to blend in. We just want to fit. We want to be loved. We want to be family. One of my rules is that I deeply value family. But not all family is by blood. And that was one of the harder rules to learn throughout life. I'm trying to pause to go back because there's one other thing I wanted to cover. Sociopathy and getting even. Getting even is a balancing act. But I want you to think about something. Think about every Marvel movie with a criminal mastermind, right? Those criminal masterminds, they're pretty darn sharp, aren't they? That's what we can be. And some of us learn to be that way, sadly. The more put down we are in life, the more rejected we are. The less likely we become to develop a sense of society, a sense of empathy. Now for the younger viewers, empathy, a sense of empathy means you can understand that they have different feelings, that they're an individual unto themselves. They're just their own unique person like you are. And they have their own unique feelings. We get even because we recognize the wrong and the imbalance. Let's stay focused. Empathy is something where you recognize the other person is another person. That other person is unique, just like you are. They have their own feelings, their own perceptions, their own desires. And to my fellow autists, they're not always going to choose the right decision. You've got to accept that. Some people they're going to use you, going to use your kindness. They're going to use your honesty against you. Some people will. Not all of them. Most people are okay, but there are some people that will. And these people, they probably had a hard life themselves. They probably had challenges. Does that give them the right to take it out on you? No. Will people always believe you? Not always. In fact, if you're like me, not many people believe you. You're blamed before you're believed, if you're ever believed. I've been there. I've spent my entire life like that. The word autist derives from auto, self. We're perfectly fine being alone. My kind are. But after a while, we're human too. We want to be around the rest of you. We don't have a true sense of empathy. At least most of us don't. It's something that has to be learned. And think of it as, okay, we're slower to learn that one. Because the same way that some of you can't understand why somebody does something, we can't understand a lot of what you guys do because you don't act logically. You act on emotion. You act on impulse. That's why we have things called impulse buys. That's literally taught in marketing and business administration. Impulse buys. So you guys act on impulse, emotion, volatility is how we see it. And we try to operate strictly by logic. We don't always succeed because we still have emotions too. And we want you to understand our emotions. Parents, if you've seen some of us saying, no, you don't understand. We're having a hard time explaining something to you. But we want you to understand so that you can relate to us better. We want to be a part of a family. We want to be a part of society. It's just we have a little bit of challenge getting outside of our own heads. Hence the word autist, auto, self. So it's a selfist, selfie. And we get stuck in our own heads a lot. We really do. I've been fighting against this. I've recognized this for about 10 years, and I've been fighting against it for just as long, and even longer. So rabbit holing is a very big thing for us. It's why this is take number 8. Because I keep trying to do this and I keep rabbit holing. And I wanted to make the first video without any script. Like I've got bulleted points for future subjects, but I wanted to make this without one so that you could see how difficult it is for us to blend with you. It's difficult to be in society, being what I am, how I am. And not everybody is as fortunate to love psychology as much as I do. I'm built for psychology. I really am. If Freud would be Jordan Peterson, I would be Carl Jung. I'm built for this. I'm built for psychology, and I'm built to piece these puzzles together. I've got some very big ones I'm piecing together. Not every one of my kind is built like I am. Some of us are built to be amazing at computers. Some of us are built to be amazing at cars. And we want to be used. That's the big thing. We don't want to take your job. We don't want to take your position. The only reason I ever stole somebody's girlfriend, well, I stole a lot of girlfriends, is because I was getting even with people who were just harmful to me for no damn reason. No reason whatsoever. They just did it to do it. Schadenfreude. And if I didn't understand what Schadenfreude was and where Schadenfreude comes from, it comes from the ego, by the way. I had to learn or figure out where did the ego come from. Because until we fully understand, we have this incompleteness inside of us that is, it's like a hole. We want to understand something. We want to figure it out so that we can at least reason it out. Why did this happen? Why did this person do this? And we've got this hole inside of us that always nags at us. It's like that song in the back of your head that never goes away. And until we figure it out, it's still going to be in the back of our minds. Only our minds are like 8 minds, all at the same time. I can literally walk through 8 different lines of memory, different experiences in life. That's what I mean. Is I can walk through 8 different time periods and experiences that have some relationship at the same time. I've done it. My kind do it all the time. It's like watching 8 different televisions. Kind of like the Matrix where you had all those TV screens lined up. It's like that. We're honest, at least we try to be. But when we see a system that we can manipulate, we will. That's our nature. Every child is born a sociopath. They don't care if their mom needs to sleep, eat, whatever. Every child is. But you guys grow out of it quicker than we do. And because of how much we focus inside our heads, it's hard to get outside of our heads, which is why when we see you crying, we'll think that you're crying for the same reasons that we would cry. We have to learn it. And if you guys aren't teaching us, then how can we learn? We've got to observe, and we're going to make mistakes. It's why my kind... All right, let me tell you a fun story, this one. I used to practice lines in high school. Junior high, high school, and whatnot. Practice lines that I saw in movies and whatnot because I like girls. Imagine that. And I became a pickup artist. Not joking. Towards the end of high school and whatnot, I was already in college. Started college when I was 16, and I was a pickup artist. The way that I did it was I basically figured out all these different lines that, okay, this one worked a little bit further. I basically played Groundhog Day with the lines. Anybody who's seen the movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray, you get it. But basically I would try out these different lines. Okay, this one worked, this one didn't. Okay, scrap that. And I eventually got to where I was walking around with an active script. An active freaking script. And I'm going to call this an accomplishment because at the time where my mind was at, this was before I truly learned empathy. And where my mind was at was, I got to the point where I could go from ordering food at the order to getting their number and meeting up with them at the end of the night. Yeah, that was me. I'm not proud of it, but at the time I was. That was manipulation at work, meaning, okay, I didn't see people as people. I couldn't. I didn't have that capability. Nobody ever taught it to me. But my grandmother laid the foundations. She laid the foundations for me to be able to discover it. I'm not the first autist in my family. I'm not the first generation at all. And I thank God for that. And yes, I do believe in God. In fact, I'm pretty sure I can prove that there is one, scientifically. We have to figure things out on our own, just like anybody else, but some things we learn slower, some things we learn faster. We've got our own unique gifts. What I'm saying is that we want to be in society. You will never find a more loyal friend than an autist. Never. Once we set a rule that you are a friend, we're your friend for life even when you're not our friend anymore. That's how we operate. We set these rules and we stick to these rules. Kind of how you hear me, switching and swanging right here. It's because I'm having to relive memories, challenges, and it's an extraordinary experience. It's kind of like the first time you get into a hot bath. It's hot. It's hot. It burns. But after you get used to it, man, it can be relaxing. And that's what it's like to truly be free as an autist. At first, when we're kids, we're just jumping around left and right. We don't know how to limit where our minds go. And then when we do limit it, we get so focused that we block out everything around us. We can't hear you. I'm going to end it here. If you want to recap on any of this stuff, rideshare, one word, commando. So look that up on YouTube. Rideshare, then commando. That's the YouTube channel this is going through. I hope this is educational for all of you, because I'm going to be covering each topic a little bit more in depth. This is just a high-level overview, and I wish you guys well in this COVID-19 thing. I've seen people get sick on it, and it's not nice. So be safe, okay?